Hi everybody, trying a new side. Right? This is kind of radical for me, going this way. Only because I've drawn the diagram on the wrong side. I'm too lazy to rub it out. But anyway, here we go. We've got the tariff diagram again. This time dissected. You can see I've pretty much put the alphabet on this diagram. What I'm going to do is look at these specific factors here and see how each one is affected by the imposition of a tariff. So let's get moving. You should by now understand the tariff diagram. If you don't, go back and watch my previous video. I'm not going to spend time going through that again. Let's just go through the impacts right here. Let's start with the price. As a result of a tariff being imposed, the price has increased, doesn't it? So the price has gone up from PW to PW plus T. So the price has increased. What's happened to domestic demand? Domestic demand has contracted, it's gone down. It was at Q2, whereas now with this new price, right, the demand is only at Q4. So domestic demand has decreased from Q2 to Q4. And that makes logical sense. With a higher price, you would expect a contraction of demand. Whereas domestic supply, with a higher price, the opposite is true for domestic supply. There's an extension of supply. It was at Q1. With a higher price, it now cuts and gives us Q3. So that's increased from Q1 to Q3. So domestic suppliers are happy with this. That's the idea, isn't it? What's happened to imports? Well, remember, they've been squeezed. Imports, the excess demand, so the import, was Q1, Q2, whereas now it's Q3, Q4. So that's gone down. So it's fallen from Q1, Q2 to now Q3, Q4. Okay, so imports squeezed from two sides, from a reduction in demand, from an increase in supply. Less excess demand now that needs to be satisfied with this spending on imports. Let's look at the impacts on revenues. Domestic producer revenue. What's happened? Well, remember how we measure revenue? It's the price being sold times the number of units being sold by the quantity, so P times Q. So initially, domestic producer revenue was price PW times the number of units being produced and sold by domestic suppliers, which was only Q1. So PW times Q1 is just A. So initially, it was just this box A. Whereas now, with a higher price of PW plus T, they are now selling more at Q3, an extension of supply. So PW plus T times Q3 gives you not just A, but A plus B plus E plus F plus G. Gives you that entire rectangle there. So basically, domestic producer revenue has increased from A to A plus B plus E plus F plus G. So a relatively large increase in domestic producer revenue. What about foreign producer revenue? What's happened to that? Well, initially, they were selling their exports. They were selling products that were imported by this domestic country. Okay, and they were getting revenue from all those goods being sold to this country. So they were selling Q1, Q2. So for this domestic country, there were imports. For the foreign suppliers, there were exports. They were getting revenue of Q1, Q2 times by the price. So B plus C plus D. That's what they were getting before. Okay, now with the tariff, how much are they actually selling to this domestic country? Well, they're selling less, only Q3, Q4, correct? And, okay, the price has gone up from PW plus to PW plus T, but they're not keeping all of that revenue. So you would think, okay, PW plus T times by the difference between Q3 and Q4 gives you this big rectangle, C plus H. But we're going to look at this in a second, and you'll know this from the previous video, that H is not kept by the foreign producer. H has to be paid to the government. So all that's kept is C. So it's decreased from B plus C plus D to just C. That's all that's left. So foreign producers lose out, very much so. Government revenue we know is just H. Okay, so that is a gain. What about consumer surplus effects? I touched on this in my previous video without really going into detail. Let's go into more detail now. So initially, what was the consumer surplus? Right, well with the price PW, I'll do it in black. The consumer surplus was this triangle here, all the way down, all the way across, and up, okay? So that was the initial consumer surplus, that big black triangle there. Whereas now, with this higher price, the area of consumer surplus is just this smaller black triangle, smaller one up there. So remember how we work out consumer surplus? It's the area beneath the demand curve but above the price. So you can see here how this little kind of black trapezium there has been completely left behind. Okay? So consumer surplus, we can say, has decreased from kind of a big triangle to a smaller triangle. Okay? And you can kind of see that on there. What about producer surplus? What's happened to that? Well, I'll show you that one in green. So initially the producer surplus, how do we work that out? It's the area above the supply curve but below the price. So initial producer surplus was this green triangle, you can see that there, quite small. Now with the higher price, the artificially higher price because of the tariff, the triangle has got bigger, isn't it? Yeah? The new producer surplus is now all the way over there. Okay, so producer surplus has increased, right? Increased, and we'll do it in green. So just from a small triangle like that to a much bigger one. There's an increase in producer surplus, you can show that on the diagram there. And we also learned in my previous video of the dead weight to welfare losses, and I don't really need to go through those in depth anymore because I did it in the last video. Areas G and I are both dead weight losses. G is a dead weight loss of world efficiency, and I is a dead weight welfare loss of consumer surplus. Okay, two areas that are not recovered. So even though this whole trapezium is being lost in terms of consumer surplus, E and F are recovered in terms of producer surplus, H is recovered in terms of government revenue, which can be used to spend on fantastic things like infrastructure and education and healthcare, all these wonderful things that are needed, especially in developing countries, a huge boon to have that government revenue there. But areas G and I are gone forever. Oh no, terrible. They weren't providing benefit to economic agents beforehand, especially obviously to consumers. Now they are lost. That's not a good thing. There's benefit that was being derived before, that's now gone and not recovered. That is a dead weight loss of welfare. So G and I represent those. G, a loss of world efficiency, I, a dead weight loss of consumer surplus. So the beauty of this tariff diagram is that you can dissect it into such minute detail. And knowing this, I think, is quite useful when it comes to analysing a diagram and using some of these points to back up the analysis you have in your essay. You are going to look like a seriously amazing star of economics, the god of economics if you can do this. So good luck to you. You managed to get this all down and understand it. You're on track to smash that exam and to nail your A star. You deserve it after getting through this video. Thanks for watching. See you all next time.